I'm Ron Lofgren. I grew up in eastern Grays Harbor around the Elma area, and both of my grandparents were small dairy farmers, and so from the time I was a child on up, I was around dairy farms, and that's my heritage. When I was in the 8th grade, my grandfather died, and I went over to my grandmother's and I milked cows from the time I was in the 8th grade on through high school. And then my grandmother could draw Social Security, and my parents took over the farm. And I had some 4-H projects, and I sold them, and I graduated from school, and I bought land with that money. I ended up with 60 acres. About 25 acres of it was pasture. So I have kept a contact with animals and farming, even though I was a bricklayer. In the early days of the farming, there were 540 dairy farms in Grays Harbor County. And some of those were very small, only maybe 10 or 15 cows. We had 10 cows on my grandmother's farm. My other grandparents had 25. And the cows would produce about 10,000 pounds of milk per year. And they had about 6.5% butter fat.
Whoa! What kind of cows?
Jerseys. Okay. Now, since then, the breeds have changed. They've tried to produce more milk, and they've changed a lot of things. And the cows, the same cow will now produce 18 to 20,000 pounds of milk instead of 10. And the butter fat is down to less than 5% because they're just putting more water into what was a perfectly good product. And so the feeding has changed. We fed local grass hay off the farm, and now they feed a lot of grain. There's 10 dairy farms left in Grays Harbor County out of 540. And there's 1,600 cows. I just checked with the county agent yesterday. And there's 1,600 cows, and they average around 22,000 pounds of milk per cow. And that's 44,000 glasses of milk a day per cow. I mean, a year per cow. So, yeah, a lot fewer cows are producing a lot of milk. And in the old days, that's me. I was born in '39, by the way, before World War II, and they still made good parts. But the cows now, they last about 2.5 years in the milking string. In other words, once they have their first calf, in 2.5 years they're goners. Our cows used to last 14 years. Okay, and about 16 we'd start to say, okay, Millie, or whatever, they had names, you know, you're a goner. And she became hamburger and meatballs because 16-year-old cow wasn't very tender. And life on the farm, it was a community. There was our cousins. We had a potato patch. There was 4 families involved. There was an acre of potatoes. And everybody would come out and we'd plant potatoes one day. My grandfather tilled the field. Every second year it had to be a new field to keep the disease from happening. And we had 15 or 20 kids planting potatoes. And everybody laughing and having a good time and a big meal afterwards. And then it was time to hoe the potatoes, and everybody'd show up, and when it was time to hill the potatoes. And peas, beans, corn, it was all the same thing. It was a community thing. When we canned peas, one woman would be dipping peas pods into hot water, and they soften the shell, and there was a hand wringer. And 3 kids were poking peas into this old hand wringer, used to be from a washing machine, and the peas would pop right back out into a bin, and you know, a tub full of peas pretty soon, and they'd can peas. So everything was community. When somebody had bad fortune, everyone would come and rebuild a barn that got burned or whatever. A whole community would show up and fix it. Since that time, about 1960, they said you can't ship milk in cans anymore. And you had to have a bulk milk tank with a cooler on it. We used to cool the milk and put it in cans and then put it in icy water, put the big 10-gallon cans in, and then the milk truck would pick them up in the morning. And they said, well, they don't want to pick up milk every day now. You put it in the bulk tank. And so the air was over the milk for a longer period of time. When you had milk in a can, there was that much air over the top. It wasn't exposed to anything, it was chilled. And it would last quite a while. When the bulk tanks came in, they were expensive. Half the farmers didn't want to convert. The price of milk had gone from $7.50 during World War II and right after, down to $3 a pound. And so with the lower price and the demands, the majority of the dairy farms disappeared. People who had less than 25 cows just quit. And it was an economic issue, not necessarily a sanitation or anything else issue. But when you think of 540 dairy farms in the county, and every farm had at least a half a dozen kids, and every one of those kids and their neighbors drank raw milk.
Yeah.
Right on.
I was raised on raw milk from day one. And I've been very healthy.
Good.